there, YouTube? I'm back again today for another game review. Today, I'm very excited to check out Master of the Galaxy from Ares Games. This is for 2 to 4 players, ages 13 plus. It'll take about 60 minutes to play. And Master of the Galaxy is a 4X game in which you are going to try to win the game in one of 3 unique ways, either laying down all your bases, or going up to number 5 on a track, or going to someone else's home planet and saying, hey, this is my home planet now. It has lots of different paths to victory, has lots of moving parts, lots of moving pieces. This was actually my number 2 most anticipated game of Gen Con 2018. So needless to say, chomping at the bits to play it. I have played it now 3 times. What did I think? Did it live up to my expectations? Please don't suck. Let's open it up and I'll tell you what I think. Alright then, we're going to take a look at what you're going to get inside of Master of the Galaxy. Before we get started, I do want to mention this is a big, beefy game. I'm going to try and cover as much as I can, but there will be some details that I will probably have to leave out. So first and foremost, you have a handy dandy rule booklet, 19 pages, double-sided, full color, full of pictures, illustrations, examples, and it's pretty well done. You will have to keep coming back to it from time to time, especially on your first couple games, but overall I'd say it does a good job of explaining how the game works. So thumbs up on the rule booklet. Also really like the amount of illustrations and pictures they have in here. So in Master of the Galaxy, this is a 4X game in which there are going to be 3 different ways that you can win the game. First way you're going to be able to win the game is by dominating one of these trees right here and getting all the way up to 5. If you can get any of your tokens all the way up to 5, then you will be able to win the game in that way. And those symbols are generally going to come from cards, and you have to fill in various different aspects with various different types of cubes in order to do that. So that's one way that you can win the game. You also can get those symbols by habitating and colonizing on different planets, which is what these different arrows mean. So there's going to be a couple different ways you can do that. The next way you're going to be able to win the game is by spreading yourself out and getting all 9 of your bases out in the galaxy. And yes, they are different looking bases, but they're all the same. I actually kind of like the fact that they have different looking bases because not every city looks the same. But if you can get all 9 of these out there, then you win the game. Last way you can do it is by going to someone else's planet and bam, slamming a base onto their planet. If you were able to get one of your bases onto somebody else's planet, then you will win the game immediately. So those are the 3 ways that you're going to win the game. Now let's talk about all the other stuff in the game. Normally I'd go over the components and then get into the gameplay, but right now I'm going to kind of do it a little bit of a different way. So the first thing you're going to do when you first start the game is you are going to get a species card. This is going to be the race that you are. So let's take a look at the cards right here. Most of the cards will look like this in a variety of different ways, and how it works is this is a cube allocation game. So you're going to be taking cubes out of your bag. You'll have a bag right here. When you start off, you're going to have 5 of each color cube. And you're going to draw 3 cubes out of the bag, and you're going to place those cubes on a variety of different cards. All these cards over here are going to be different types of cards that you will be able to place your cubes on. And each of the spots will give you something different. So for instance, if you can fill up this entire row, then you get to draw one of these cards over here, a green, blue, or yellow card. This is kind of a tech tree-esque aspect of the game because the green cards obviously are all about expansion. The blue cards are kind of about upgrades. They're called progress. And then the commerce cards are, well, you guessed it, about commerce. And once again, these will give you the symbols which will allow you to win the game. So each of the different colors of cards has its own feel to it. So me personally, I really like the blue cards. I really like the persistent upgrades you can get. You may place blue resources instead of red ones on conflicts cards. You have the orange symbol for each type of development card you have, expansion, commerce, or progress. That's a huge freaking card. During phase 1 of your turn, if you draw only blue resources, choose any development deck and gain 1 card of your choice from it. And I just read 3 or 4 of those cards out to you, and those cards might not make sense to you. But what I want you to know is each one of those cards kind of gives you your own unique strategy and how you can potentially win the game. I read 3 of those off, and each of those 3 cards would be like, wow, if I got that card, I would try to do X thing to win the game. And that's what I really, really like about this game, and that's kind of a spoiler alert, but a lot of these cards will kind of give you different glimpses of paths to victory that you can take in the game. Well, let's get back to the species card. So that one's going to let you draw one of those cards. If you're able to fill this one up, you're going to go up 1 on each of these tracks, but you have to leave these cubes here permanently. Whereas this one, with the little arrows, you gain something and then you get your cubes back. This one, you just have to persistently leave it there. Last but not least, this one is going to allow you to build a base, and you actually physically put the base on this card. And you can only have one base on the card, so you have to place the base before you can build another thing. You can start building up to something else, though, which is a nice addition as well. So you're going to pick one of these species. If you don't like either of these species, then one of the cool aspects of the game is you can put both cards on the bottom of the deck and then draw the top card randomly. And that's how card drawing works. So if I were supposed to take a green card, I get to look at two of the cards, decide which one I want, and if I don't want either of them, then I can put them both on the bottom and draw one randomly off the top. So I do like that. So let's see what we got here. We got Cybrids. Wow, he really likes yellow. So he has 6 yellow here. So if I want to complete this, I'm going to have to find a way to get more yellows, and I'll talk about how to get more yellows later. Next, you're going to have your little handy-dandy player aid card right here, which is really not that helpful when you're first starting the game. But probably about a fourth of the way through the game or halfway through the game, you'll be like, oh, that's what this means. It actually is incredibly useful. It just takes a while to understand the useful. So up here's the 3 different ways you can win the game. Right here are the different types of cards. This is how you're going to be able to gain different cards, because we talked about the green, the blue, and the yellow cards, but next we have the leader, the conflict, and the government cards. So let's take a look at some of those cards right there. These are going to be different people that you're going to be able to have, and they're going to allow you to take different actions. So once per turn, when you draw a yellow or white resource from your bag, you may exchange it for a blue resource from the reserves. That'd be really good if you need blue resources. During phase 1 of your turn, draw 1 more resource from your bag, 4 instead of 3, and so on. So that is huge. But the thing is, you have to pay attention to the symbols on the left, because you have to have those symbols in order to use these resources. So while you may have an awesome card that might be attacking people or doing something really cool, you have to make sure that you are on that track before you can do it. There also are some cards that you might have to discard, like this guy right here, which means he's a super powerful card. Remove 1 base from 2 different players, each from systems that are not involved in a conflict. So that's huge. Skip your next turn, though, which means you actually can lose a turn in this game. But from everything I've seen, it's always optional. It's like, all right, you can do this super awesome thing, but you yourself have to lose a turn, and then you have to discard the card, which is a bummer as well. But still, very powerful card that can prevent someone from winning the game. Next, we have the conflict cards, which are really stinking cool, and they are a way to get from point A to point B, and also a way to fight other people. So how this works is you're going to play this onto a spot where you already have one of your planets. So I might play it from here to here, like so. And now this is sort of a race style game where I can either play it like this or I can play it like that. And if there's an enemy right here, we are kind of racing up this track trying to fill in the cubes first, because if you were the first person to fill in all the cubes, then you are going to gain the spoil. And you can see there's arrows showing you what you get to steal from somebody else. Also, you get to steal cubes off of their project. So somebody might be, they might be ready to win with this, and you might be able to steal 2 yellows off there, which means they lose the 2 purple and the 2 blue, the 1 blue symbol until they get it. This is a very interesting aspect to win the game. I've seen someone use this to win the game, and I've also seen someone completely just not use this at all and win the game as well. That's one of the beauties of 4X games. Last but not least, we have the government cards, which are the hardest cards to acquire in the game, and I want to just show you how it works. If you place 1 planet in a galaxy, then you're going to get a blue card, which is great. Place 2 planets, you'll get a red card. If you place 3 planets, you'll get a black card. Likewise, if you build 1 type of these cards, if you actually have successfully built it and filled it in, then you gain 1 of those cards. If you build 2, you get a red card, and if you build 3, you're going to get a black card. So it's kind of like, how do you want to earn these cards? Do you want to expand by, placing your planets on different spots, or placing your bases on different spots, or do you want to build cards and focus on your expansion or your progress or your commerce to do it? The game's going to let you do it however you want to do it. But these cards are super powerful. On the bottom of each is going to have a persistent special ability you can do, and also it's just going to let you do different stuff. So this one, 2 yellows, is going to give you a yellow card, which is huge, because normally getting one of those cards is pretty expensive. 4 blues will let you get whatever you want. This one is going to let you build more bases, get red cards. One of them will let you gain more species cards. But the big thing is these persistent special abilities on the bottom are just huge. And when you first play the game, you're going to see cards and you'll be like, man, that card is completely broken. But there's so many cards that are super duper powerful in the game that it kind of balances it out, as crazy as it sounds. So hopefully I've given you kind of an explanation of what you're going to do. But actually, let's just run you through a mock turn of what you're going to do on your turn. And then I'll go over some of the other different actions and how you're going to be able to allocate cubes because, man, there's just so much going on in this game. So let's just pretend this is my starting planet right here. That would mean that I instantly earn myself a red because, as you can see, if you were touching this one, if you have habitated this one, you're going to get red. So I would go up, boom, 1 on the red track, which is, let's see, which one is it? Right there. Now, let's talk a little bit more about the arrows before I actually show you a mock turn. So this one means that if you are on both this planet and this planet, then you will earn this symbol. This one means if you're on one of these 2 planets, you will gain that symbol. And then this one obviously means you just have to be on that planet to gain that symbol. And those are mostly the starting planets as well. You'll also notice that there's little cubes that connect the places. So you can get from point A to point B by starting a conflict, but the other way you can do it is by placing down cubes of the same color. And they have to be either the color of the place you're leaving or the color of the place you're going to. So I could place blue cubes here and I could start traversing across the galaxy. And this might take you the entire game to get from point A to point B. This is also one way that you can get cubes out of your bag. I played a card, I showed you a card a little bit earlier that said if you only draw blue cubes, then you get to do something super awesome. I think it was like take a card out of the entire deck. Whatever card you want out of these 3, you could take, which is huge. So what you could potentially do is you might be like, oh, let's see, I'm going to get rid of all my red cubes by placing them out here, which means I'm much more likely to draw the blue cubes. Lots of different strategy involved in that, but that's another way that you're going to be able to get from point A to point B. But let's actually talk about the mock turn. On your turn, you are going to draw 3 cubes like so, and then you're going to allocate them to various different spots on your cards, because you're going to have cards, and more cards up in front of you. You'll have up to 7 cards in front of you, plus you can have conflicts out there, which you might have to deal with as well. Now, I didn't really talk about the black cubes too much, because there's so much to talk about, but the black cubes are super powerful, super useful, and they're the only cubes in the game that you cannot get rid of. Normally, you can get rid of cubes in a variety of different ways, but the black cubes, you cannot get rid of them. So the different things you'll be able to do on your turn when you're allocating resources are right here. You can settle planets, which are going to allow you to essentially get rid of a particular type of cube by placing it onto a planet, but then at the same time gaining more of that type of cube. So if I place the blue one here, I would gain 2 blue cubes. If I placed a blue one here, assuming I had habitated the planet, then I would get back 3 blue cubes. So by doing that, you're going to be able to essentially double or triple your cubes. You can establish a route, which we talked about, which is just trying to get from point A to point B by laying down cubes. And you can take these cubes back later on in the game by playing the black cube, because as I mentioned, the black cube is super duper special. You can construct a space base, which is how one of the ways you're going to be able to win the game, and it'll also allow you to gain the cards, which is another way you're going to be able to win the game. You can receive cards, which you'll do based on different actions that you're able to get. Implement development cards, which are these cards down here, which will give you persistent special abilities. They might give you cool stuff you're going to be able to do or stuff you'll be able to earn, which is nice. And you'll be able to steal resources, which will be done from leader cards and also sometimes from combat conflicts. And then you're going to be able to take part in conflict, which is just by laying cubes down on those conflict cards, which will let you go traversing around the galaxy. Anywho, after that, you're going to discard any cubes you didn't spend. You can lay down conflicts. You can do a couple different things. And I want to mention that the turns go by super snappy. But that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to get out all your planets. You're trying to move up 5 spots on this track right here. Or you are trying to go to somebody else's planet and lay down a base there. And if you're able to do any one of those 3 things, you will immediately win Master of the Galaxy. And that, in a crazy jumbled nutshell, is how this game is played. Alright then, Master of the Galaxy from Ares Games. What are my final thoughts? Let's go over the pros, let's go over the cons. First, on the con side, 2 to 4 players, restricted player count. I would have loved to have seen this at 5 or 6 players and just with a bigger board. I think that would have been absolutely fantastic. But unfortunately, it's 2 to 4. Also, I liked it best at 4 and 3 players. It's not bad as a 2-player game. I want to stress that, but I still enjoyed it as a 2-player game, and I enjoyed the mechanisms and what's going on, but I liked it at the higher player count. There's just more conflict. There's more turmoil. It tightens up the board. Now, they do have a way of laying down black holes to tighten up the board in a 2 and 3 player game, but still, I liked it best at the higher player counts. Another con that I think some people are going to have with this game is that some of the cards feel broken. You're going to get cards you'll be like, oh my, what? I can do that? Just every turn I'm able to do this? And you're going to be like, that's broken. This is clearly broken. But here's the thing. The cards are so powerful, and there's so many cards that are powerful, and there's so many synergies that are so stinking powerful that generally is not the case that you're going to just win the game because you got that card. Because it's a 60-minute game. Like, they really were like, all right, let's get this stuff over with. We're going to give you these super awesome cards. You're going to pound through this game, and it's going to finish in about 50 to 70 minutes. That's what we're going for here, folks. And they succeed in that aspect, but at the same time, some people are not going to like that. One of my favorite aspects of Twilight Imperium 3rd Edition, which is my favorite game of all time, another 4X game, is the slow boil. It's all about planning and contemplating and trying to figure out exactly what you can do and the negotiation and doing this and doing that. And while there is some of that in this game, it's not nearly as pronounced because they did manage to fit a 4X game into 1 hour. So that is something that will be a turnoff to some people. Another comment of this game is that you are going to have to go back to the rule booklet quite a few times, especially when you're first starting the game, which is a little bit of a bummer. In this game, I worry about it ever so slightly because it is 2 to 4 players, which means I'm not going to be able to get it to the table as much. It is one of those games that when you go back to the game, you are going to have to reread the rules for certain things because while it is a relatively straightforward game, once you know what you're doing, there's a lot of moving parts and moving pieces that you are going to have to remember, which is a little bit of a bummer. Any other cons I have of the game? You know, it wasn't... the different species, I wish they were a bit more pronounced. I wish they were just a little bit more asymmetrical. Don't get me wrong, they're very, very different, but they're pretty much very, very different because we need 6 red cubes, or we need 2 red cubes, 2 blue cubes, and 2 white cubes, or we need 3 black cubes. And I wish they were just a little bit more pronounced in their asymmetricalness, if that's even a word, in the species. It's not a huge deal or a deal breaker, but it is something that I did want to mention. Any other cons that I have with the game? Want to get them all out there? No. Moving on to the pros. I freaking loved Master of the Galaxy. I had very high expectations of the game, and it lived up to my expectations. It was not the exact game that I was hoping it would be, but man, what it does very, very well. So let's just start from the beginning and go to the end. Component-wise, the components are good, rock solid. Some of the colors are a little bit samey, and I wish some of the tokens that went on the 5-track were a little bit smaller, but that's more of a nitpick than anything else. Oh, the cards are the star of this game. I love the cards in this game. I love the fact I'm always going to have 3 choices. I'm going to have the 2 choices that I know when I draw cards, and then it's like, if I don't like either of these choices, or neither of these choices really synergize with what I'm trying to do, then I can wild card my card at the end, or just off the top, and just completely randomly draw a card. I also love the fact that you're not stuck with these cards. Discarding cards is a really viable strategy to getting exactly the cubes you want into your bag, especially if you're just like, I'm not having any conflict at all, I'm just going to discard these conflict cards. You can get exactly the cubes you want into your bag, which I really stinking like. But the cards, man, I love those cards, and I love just trying to tinker with exactly the right combination of cards that I want, because it's like, oh, this card is going to let me now start doing this, so if I can get another card that could do something like this, that would be absolutely magnificent. I also love how you start off with the leaders, and then you get the conflicts, and then just earn your way up to those government cards. You might not even want a leader or a conflict card that much, but those government cards, you're going to want them because, man, they are really stinking powerful, and once people start getting government cards, that game is going to rapidly be approaching the end. And I like the fact that there's different paths to victory as well. Well, it might appear that someone is just like, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to win the game. It's surprising because most of the knowledge is public knowledge. You're still going to be missing out on different ways people can win the game just based on the text on their cards. And I like that aspect of the game a lot. You know, I really like the bases and how they're different, but I guess that would fall under components. I like the conflict cards. I personally don't use them. I played this 3 times now, once at 2, once at 3, and once at 4 players, and I'm not the biggest fan of using them because that's just not how I like to 4X, but it feels like it's a perfectly valid strategy. And let me tell you, when someone lays down a conflict card on you, you're like, oh, it just got real, son. Are you really coming at me right now? I got my own plans I'm trying to do. You're trying to go over here. You're trying to steal this. You're trying to steal those cubes. I'm not having that. And I do like the fact that you get the first punch. Like when someone comes at you, you get the first punch because they're not actually allowed to lay down cubes on their card their turn they play them, so you are going to be able to play on it first. And it's like, well, do I want to keep doing what I'm doing, or do I want to just kind of lay down on the conflict? And I like those interesting choices that other people are going to put on you with the conflict. Without a doubt, though, I want to say one of my favorite things about this game is definitely how quick and snappy the turns are. If you play most 4X games, you know that downtime between turns can take forever. ever. Twilight Imperium is my favorite game of all time, but dear God, especially in a 6 to 8 player game, I literally can go get a pizza out of the freezer, preheat the oven, put the pizza in the oven, come back down, and it'll still be 2 turns before it gets to me most of the time, because turns are long. This game has incredibly quick turns. This game has so many quick turns that it's like, oh wait, I was gonna go pee, but it's already back to my turn. And I love that. It's just you get the 3 cubes and it's where am I going to allocate these cubes? Do I want to build here? Do I want to deal with this conflict? Do I want to play them down on the card? And then your turn's over. Super duper quick. And I love that aspect of the game. So in the end, Master of the Galaxy. You couldn't tell. Huge fan of this. If you like 4X and you're looking for a 4X game that plays in an hour, get it. Get it, especially if you're looking at this as a 3 and 4 player game. I would, and honestly, the only thing holding this back from Bauer's Bastille is a 5/5 player. If you could play with 5 players, I would have slapped a Bauer's Bastille on this right now. At 2 to 4 players, it's going to be much more difficult to get to the table, but I am going to find a way to get this to my table. This is one of my new favorite 4X games, and one that I think a lot of people are really going to dig. So that is Master of the Galaxy from Ares Games, one that I wholeheartedly recommend you check out if you're in the market for a 1-hour 4X game. If you enjoyed this review, please be sure to click on that subscribe button down below in the comments below. Let me know, what is your favorite space-themed movie of all time? Space-themed movie. Man, I kind of did this for my favorite sci-fi movie. I'm going to go with Gattaca. I really love Gattaca. It's about this guy who wants to be an astronaut and go out into space, but he's his genes, his genetics aren't up to snuff, and so he wants to try and prove that he could potentially go into space despite the fact his genes aren't good enough. And so what he has to do is he has to hire this guy who has really good genes despite the fact he's in a wheelchair, and use his genes and his saliva and his blood to try to infiltrate NASA and go out into space. Absolutely outstanding movie. Let me know in the comments below, what is your favorite space movie? And as always, thanks for your time, YouTube.